Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. So in this video, I wanted to talk about Marvel and the current state that Marvel is in, specifically the MCU. And I want to go over a few projects that I think could possibly help save the Marvel universe as we know it. Because listen, we all know Marvel has been on the decline. The past, 10, 15 projects have just been, on average, subpar. There have been some great ones, some diamonds in the rough, but overall, it's been underwhelming, I think. And I think everybody else can agree. And I think there's a lot of problems. I've made videos talking about the problems, but in this video, I sort of want to look up, I want to look more positive, and I want to look at some projects that I think could really help turn things around. So first of all, we're going to start by looking at Blade. Now, Blade is something that has basically been stuck in development hell since it was announced. It was announced quite a few years ago, and still production hasn't even begun, or filming hasn't begun. We've had script rewrites, we've had director changes. So much stuff has gone on from this film, but it's quite strange that I'm even suggesting this film could help save the MCU. It's kind of a ballsy claim. However, if you listen to my point, you may agree. So anyway, Blade has had a complete creative overhaul, within the past year, right? There was something that happened a few months ago where Marvel fired the director. I think it was like a year ago, sometime last year. Marvel fired the director that was working on it and have completely rewritten the script. We know that Mahershala Ali is still starring in it, and we also know that Mia Goth will also be starring in the film. She is suspected to play Lilith, but we're not going to get into specific plot details at the moment. But yeah, so we don't know a ton about this film. We know that in the original early scripts, it was supposed to take place within the 1930s. We don't know if that's still happening, but that was a aspect that was going to be included in the early drafts of the script. But yeah, the reason I would say this gives me such potential for the future of Marvel isn't necessarily the movie itself, but what it represents. Because during that creative overhaul, there was a rumor going around that Kevin Feige wanted to keep Blade, the overall budget, around 100 million. And if you know anything about Marvel, you'll know their budgets are blown way out of. The budgets are just blown. They are massive. They do not need to be that big. Like the Marvels cost $200 something million to make. Secret Invasion, which we can all agree is the worst Marvel Disney Plus show, cost over $300 million to make that show. And what an absolute colossal waste of money that was. So I think Blade itself, while it can be a great film, they're having great creative overhauls. They've got a new director in there. They've rewritten the script. I think what it stands for is more important. That smaller budget thing, which is sort of more low risk for Marvel, for the MCU. I think it's a good idea to have a film, because these films don't need to cost that much. They really don't. You can make great films with great effects with $100 million. I mean, that's plenty of money. So I think it's what it means for the future of the MCU. If the MCU stop taking such massive risks with the money and sort of scale it back a bit and have a little bit more lower budget films, then the loss won't be as massive if the film tanks. So I think this film just sort of sets a good precedent for the future of the MCU, having that lower budget and, just setting that precedent for future films, that it doesn't need to be $300 million. It doesn't need to be, $200 million even. It's just way too much. And a lot of these movies aren't even making their money back. But it's good to see that they're, having a creative overhaul. It's good to see that they're looking at this and saying, right, we can do this for $100 million. We want to keep this under $100 million or around that number. So I think this is a good thing. I think it gives me hope for the future of the MCU. I think it could save future projects from tanking at the box office. That's the aspect I'm coming at it from. It can save future Marvel films from tanking. It can, save Marvel from taking such great losses with the money in order to spend that money in other places that need it, with the bigger franchises like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and things like that are coming. So yeah, I think Blade definitely sets a good precedent for the future of the MCU. I think keeping it under $100 million is great. And the movie could be great as well. Like I hope this is great. I think the concept's great. Like half vampire, half human, sort of could still be set around 1930s. Mia Goth is in it. Mahershala Ali, great cast. I think this has the potential to be incredible. And I think because it's so low, if it makes heaps of money, then it will just be a colossal win for Marvel because of that lower budget. And because if it makes a lot of money, it just, it'll make, it could triple its budget easily. You know, it could quadruple it. So that's why the lower budget aspect is very helpful for Marvel. So I think that Blade is definitely setting a good precedent, and I think it's something that shows us the future of the MCU and the possible, aspects about which Marvel could be going down to help save its, box office precedent. So yeah, that's the aspect of Blade that I want to look at in terms of saving the MCU. But yeah, let me know what you think about Blade potentially saving the MCU, but I think this is a good thing, and I'm very excited to see how the film comes out. Now, next up, I want to talk about Deadpool 3. This film is going to save the MCU in a different way, but the reason it isn't my number one most, I guess, film that I would say is going to save the MCU is because I'm sort of looking at this as more of a Guardians of the Galaxy 3 sort of thing, where it's like, Guardians of the Galaxy came out very recently. It's, one of the newer Marvel films, that have come out in Phase 5, after, I guess, what people are calling the decline of the MCU after Endgame. But it was still a great fucking film and made a shit ton of money. I think it made like $800 million at the box office, which is, just shy of $1 billion. But yeah, I think it was a great film, and I think it wasn't, it wasn't a way to look into what the MCU was going to become, and so that's why I'm sort of putting Deadpool in that sort of same space where it's like, yep, that was a great film, but it was very self-contained. It was very, speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, it was very self-contained. It was very, it wasn't showing us the future of the MCU. It was sort of wrapping up a storyline that had been going on throughout the Infinity Saga. Basically the last storyline from the Infinity Saga was wrapped up in Guardians 3. So that's why I sort of put Deadpool 3 on that same level, because this is a third film, and while it is going to be featuring a lot of the X-Men, Wolverine is back, we're going to have a lot of cameos, and it's going to explore things that have been, introduced in the new MCU, like the TVA and the Void and things like that. I think this is just going to be kind of self-contained with that. I think the reason I could say it could save the MCU is because, one, I think it's going to make $1 billion. I mean, it's pretty much guaranteed with the amount of cameos that are happening, and it's Sean Levy's directing. Ryan Reynolds is not going to let this movie be bad. So, Wolverine's coming back, Hugh Jackman, so I have a lot of hope for this film to make a lot of money, but also for it to sort of make a, clean up the mess that the MCU has made with all this multiversal rules, with the TVA, with like things like dream walking and like going to other universes, and America Chavez's powers, and how is that not involved with the TVA, and what's the difference between timelines and multiverses. I'm hedging this film on that. I think this film needs to explain all of it. It needs to clean up the massive mess that has been made, because the general audience doesn't understand multiverse. I don't even understand multiverse in the Marvel context. Like, what are the rules? How does it work? I think this film needs to come in and explain that and sort of clean it up for the future of the MCU, so we know how it works going forward, so we know what the rules are going to be for Secret Wars and for using the multiverse in films. I think that's why this film could save the MCU, not only because it's going to make $1 billion, it's pretty much guaranteed. It's going to, introduce wrap up a lot of the old X-Men storylines and, give them their swan song, sort of. This could be Deadpool's swan song for all we know. Like, he could die in this film. I don't know. Like, what's the future of Deadpool in the MCU? We don't know. But I think this film is going to make $1 billion. It's going to help explain the multiversal timeline rules that are such a mess in the MCU. And it's also going to be a self-contained story, I think, wrapping up the whole Deadpool trilogy, And so that's why I compare it to Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But there's a reason it's not the last film I'm going to talk about in terms of saving the MCU, because it's not an indicator of where we're going in the future, I don't think, at least. Well, I just think in terms of saving the MCU, the $1 billion and cleaning up the multiverse, I think that is all we're going to get in terms of saving the MCU and looking at it going forward for future indications. But I have hope. I think the film's going to be great, obviously. I mean, I'm so excited. That trailer was really good, and I'm very excited to see Ryan Reynolds back in this role, and I'm excited to see what they do and what the future of Deadpool is going to be in the MCU. But I think this has the potential to come in and save the MCU for future films, with the $1 billion and explaining the multiverse. Lastly, I want to talk about Fantastic Four. Now, the reason I put this, I guess, last is because I feel like this film is going to be our biggest indicator of where the MCU is going moving forward. I think that the Fantastic Four has such great potential that I'm very worried about it, but also very optimistic about it. If this film is great, it could save the MCU. It truly, truly could, because so many reasons, which I'm going to go over. But one, it's new. It's not a sequel. It's not, it's not a small, like, I guess, more off to the side film like Blade. You know, I would compare Blade to things like Shang-Chi and like Eternals, films that like aren't necessarily affecting the future of the MCU but are great on their own. That's why I put Blade, that's why I talked about Blade sort of first and wasn't necessarily hinging the future of the MCU on it. But I think the future of the MCU hinges on this Fantastic Four film. They're going to start shooting soon, but I think the reason the MCU hinges on this film is because it's new. It's showing us what the future is gonna look like for the MCU. We've got this new set of characters coming in with these new actors who are gonna be the new face of the MCU. Let's face it, I think that the Fantastic Four are gonna become the new face of the MCU, the new Avengers. You know, I think Reed Richards is gonna be the new Tony Stark. I think Pedro Pascal is gonna be the new Robert Downey Jr. I think that's the angle they're going with for it, and I'm excited, but also cautious. I'm cautiously optimistic. But yeah, as I said, we've got the new characters coming in with the new actors. You know, Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, and Ebon Moss-Bachrach as the Thing, Ben Grimm. So I think that, you know, introducing that new family and those new faces of the MCU, you know, it's just going to show us where we're going. It's going to show us if the MCU is going to survive past this film. I think that is why I'm hinging it all on this. Also, because this film sets up so much for the future. Like, sets up, you know, we got Julia Garner as Silver Surfer, Shia LaBeouf coming in, which also sets up Galactus for the future of the MCU. We don't know if Galactus will be the main villain. We don't actually know who the main villain of this film will be. But I think that the success of this film is, I think the future of the MCU is based on the success of this film. I think this film sets up heaps, sets up loads of different things. You know, the Fantastic Four's children, it's going to set up Galactus, it's going to set up that whole area of the MCU. And if you know anything about Reed Richards' children, then you'll know they are, you know, pretty huge parts of the comics and pretty huge characters in terms of that. But yeah, again, I think this will be a franchise going forward. I think they'll do, if this succeeds, obviously, I think they'll do a Fantastic Four 2 or a Fantastic Four 3 and, you know, keep going with that. You know, I think this will be the new Avengers. I think these will be new major characters in the MCU. I do. I think they're replacing what Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, and Scarlett Johansson were. I think that's who they're replacing, and I think this is the future of the MCU. It just is. And if it's good, then it can save it. But if it's not, then unfortunately, I think it will be time to just put it on the back burner. I don't know what Marvel will do if this fails. Like, if this and because this comes out before Secret Wars, if this and Secret Wars and, you know, Kang Dynasty, which it's not called that anymore, you know, since the whole Kang thing has been scrapped. But if that all fails, the MCU is going to have to go on the back burner for a while. Like, I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't. But I think that the future is based on the success of this film. If this film makes a lot of money, it has great reviews, then I think we're chilling. I think we are good. I think we don't have to worry. But if this film is bad, then we have a problem. Then we have a major problem on our hands. But I have hope. I think it can save the MCU. I think this can come in, if it is done well, if these characters are introduced in the right way and help audiences fall in love with them, I think we can get back to how we were in the MCU with Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth and Scarlett Johansson and, you know, Mark Ruffalo and, you know, all those OG actors that aren't in it anymore and just aren't in the universe anymore. So I think this just has enormous potential. I think it can save the MCU if done right, and I really hope it is done right because I really love the MCU and I really want it to keep going. But you know, this film does have a lot of things going for it as well as the great cast that we have. We also have Matt Shakman directing, who directed what I think is the best Marvel Disney Plus show in WandaVision. He also was heavily involved with that Monarch show that just came out on Apple TV, which I didn't actually enjoy, but he was pretty much in charge of WandaVision and the success of that show, and I think he did a fantastic job with that. So I have plenty of hope for Marvel's Fantastic Four, and from what I'm hearing about the plot, it sounds quite interesting, and I think it's going to be good. And so everything is based on this film. I am hinging everything on the Fantastic Four, on the MCU's Fantastic Four. But anyway, those are my thoughts on what can save the MCU. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. What movie are you most looking forward to? What do you think needs to be done to save the MCU? Do you think it can be saved, or do you think it's past? You know, do you think the time's past? Let me know your thoughts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.